This is Michael Popok with a special Legal AF edition, After Dark, with Judge Michael Luttig. We had him on as a special interview. Couldn't think of a better person to speak to our audience at this critical and pivotal moment than former appellate judge, federal judge, constitutional scholar, iconic firebrand Michael Luttig. And we talked on our most recent interview exclusively on the MeidasTouch network about why the United States Supreme Court in its majority did not talk about Donald Trump almost at all during the oral argument. Why was his indictment not raised? Why did they focus on hypotheticals and abstracts and things that wouldn't bog them down with those nasty little things we call facts about what Donald Trump is indicted for in the criminal indictment against him? What does that mean for the eventual decision by the United States Supreme Court? Judge Luttig and I discuss it right here.
That I don't know. It was almost like, well, we don't. You were encouraging the court, and obviously the right wing of the court did not take up the invitation that you gave, which is the proper constitutional approach. You've got an indictment here about a president at the time that tried to cling to power and tried to prevent and get himself a second term. That goes to core issues in the Constitution. Your entire brief was about that, was about this particular set of crimes that have been charged could never be immune. And then you gave all the reasons over 50 pages why that was the case. How frustrated were you to listen to 2.5 hours and not have that issue come up at all? I'll preface it this way. Instead, as I've told our listeners and followers, to give them a little bit of a decoder ring, when you hear justices, and unfortunately it's usually on the right wing, say things like, I don't want to talk about the facts of this case. Let's talk about it in the abstract. I don't care about this particular indictment. I care about legacy and future. And that's paraphrasing Alito, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and by extension, Roberts. When you hear that, you're going to hear judicial activism having nothing to do with the case and lawmaking. This is my view. You can tell me whether you agree or not. And lawmaking that is inconsistent with constitutional principles.
Michael, it was remarkable and astonishing. Now, I should say that it was reminiscent of the argument by the court in the Trump versus Anderson case, which presented the question of whether the former president is disqualified under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment for having engaged in an insurrection or rebellion against the Constitution of the United States. There, as you'll recall, and as your viewers and listeners will recall, there too, the Supreme Court barely discussed at all that issue. It was evident from the argument, by the time of the end of the argument, that the Supreme Court was never going to decide the issue, not then, not ever. And of course, it didn't. So also with this argument this week on another of the most profound constitutional issues possible under our Constitution of the United States. The Supreme Court barely addressed the issue itself. It would be virtually unheard of for the court, in light of that argument, to decide the case. No one believes it's going to. I don't. It seemed evident from the court that it will remand the case back to the district court, federal district court, to determine in the first instance which acts of the former president were taken in his official capacity as president of the United States, which were taken in his private or personal capacity, and presumably which were taken in his capacity as a candidate for the presidency of the United States. Michael, those are quintessential issues for the Supreme Court of the United States of America. The Supreme Court sits for the purpose of deciding those fundamental questions. And it could decide those questions today. There's not a reason in the world to remand this case to the lower courts. If it does so, there's no question whatsoever, but that the former president will not be tried before the election in November. But it's exceedingly unlikely that he will ever be tried and held accountable for the grave offenses against the United States that he committed in or around January 6, 2021.
And Judge, if they do that, if the 5 votes or even 6 votes vote to send it back to Judge Chutkan, are they doing it on purpose in order to help this former president in his election bid?
Well, I'm not going to ascribe a motive to them, Michael, but I will state the facts that it's completely unnecessary for them to do so. And if they were to do so, they would know that the consequence of that is that the former president would not be tried before the election and possibly never tried.
Welcome back. If you like that kind of exclusive content you can only find on the MeidasTouch Network, Legal AF, Michael Popok talking to Judge Luttig and breaking it down for you, then you've come to the right place and the only place out there, the YouTube channel for the MeidasTouch Network. Free subscribe, help them get to 3 million. We're building the network with you. We have no outside investors. And to bring you this kind of content, we need your help. Join me on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for a podcast we like to call Legal AF. Join and you'll find out why. We'll have interviews like that, but mainly we've got the commentators and people to break it all down for you in the form of Karen Freeman, Ignifilo, me, and Ben Mycelis. You like lawyers talking about things at the intersection of law and politics where they know what they're talking about? How refreshing. Join us on Legal AF on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you like what I do, I'm Michael Popok. You can go over and you can pick up everything that I do on MeidasTouch and on Legal AF as a contributor and under playlists on this YouTube channel. So until my next hot take, until my next interview, my next Legal AF, my next Patreon exclusive content, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know, and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.